Hello, my fellow concerned friends, and welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for showing up and watching and supporting me every single time I post. It genuinely means the world to me. And if you are new here, hello, welcome. Thank you so much for clicking on my video. Out of all of these other videos you could have clicked on, you chose mine, and I really appreciate it. I hope that you can stick around and you can get something beneficial from my content today. If you are not new here, you would know that this is now the fourth time that we are talking about TikToker Nikaylee and the content she makes, which is calling churches to test them to see if their priorities are taking care of and protecting children or not. And unfortunately, we have seen time and time again that they don't. We are on round 2 of TikToker Nikaylee calling churches to test them. And if you were around for round 1, you would know that Nikaylee was calling churches to ask them if they would be willing to feed a starving infant. The story went something like, hey, I am a mom and I don't have any money to buy formula. My baby has been crying and hungry for 24 hours and I don't know how to feed my child. Is there any way someone in your church, your pastor, is there any way someone could help me get formula for my child? If someone could buy me a can, if you have cans in your food pantry. And we saw time and time again that these churches said no or tiptoed around saying no by trying to throw their hands in the air and say, we're so sorry, we just don't have the resources to feed a starving baby. Now, here's the thing, if you don't know anything about Nikaylee, these backstories are fake. She comes up with them. And even in the baby one, she's so dedicated to her craft. She had a baby soundtrack crying, like, what am I saying? A soundtrack of a baby crying in the background just to make it more believable. And yet they still did not care, even hearing an infant in distress. Their money is reserved for their church and people who come to their church. It's not there for just anybody. But this time around, for round 2, Nikaylee is asking the churches a different question. And that question goes like this. Hi, I have a husband who is an offender, a registered one at that, who just got out of jail after 4 years because my husband hurt our child. And we were just wondering if we would be able to attend church at your church because, church is all about forgiveness. Our only concerns, though, are, being shamed, being embarrassed, maybe people finding out. Also, my husband isn't technically supposed to be around children within a certain distance. Is that something that's going to be an issue? Will he still be able to come to family events? And ultimately, will you be able to counsel my child, to teach them that temptations happen and you need to forgive your father? And if you watched my last video, then you probably already know how this other church answered that same question. And the reason Nikaylee's videos are so important is because it pulls away that curtain. Because society, especially struggling adults, struggling children, because those are usually the people who turn to religion, they view these organizations as pretty much pure, sinless. These are the people who will help me out of the darkest places of my life. These are good people, holy people. And now I know a lot of you watching, who maybe haven't experienced that or grown up in that kind of life, you might be telling yourself duh, not people can lie. People can be fake. Why would you assume that everybody is perfect and there for you? And it's just something that you don't understand unless you have been in that place turning to that. And so I think this content is really important because I think it shows everyone, and maybe even those people who are thinking of turning to religion, that just because it's a religious organization does not mean it is a safe, holy place, or even a place that, abides by the own Bible that they are preaching. So without further ado, let's watch Nikaylee's call to Ascent Church in Westlake, Ohio. And I didn't mention this in my last video, but I will now because I just thought of it. If any of you have gone to any of these churches that Nikaylee has called or that you've seen on my page, I would love to hear about your experiences because it is terrifying how many churches across the whole country act this exact same way.
By chance, is y'all's pastor there today that I could talk to?
No.
Okay.
Sorry.
I have a question though, because like we're new to the area. I mean, we had to move, but I wasn't sure like if you all had like if y'all were like a forgiving church. I'm not sure. Like my husband, he just has like a past, and we just don't want to like get somewhere and become a member and then get kicked out.
Oh, I see. Well, the thing is, if you agree and believe in Jesus Christ and what he came to do for us, he's the forgiver.
Okay.
The church body is here to support people where they're at, but wants to bring everyone to the saving grace of Jesus Christ.
Okay.
We have a Celebrate Recovery program on Friday nights that people attend with different hang-ups and habits and that type of thing. And we have connection groups, home groups. But I would say, as a longtime member of 25 years, it is a forgiving church. Everyone has a past.
If you watched my last video, you're probably aware of why she is saying this is a very forgiving and understanding church, and why she's really trying to put emphasis on that after what she just heard Nikaylee say. So how about we take a time out and I will tell you why they're such a forgiving church.
Scandal is unfolding at a Westlake church.
Yeah, first a pastor was accused, now so is his son. Blake Chenault is joining us with the developing news.
Avon police shocked members of this community when they charged a well-known pastor with a series of crimes. Well, there's more shock this week after police charged the pastor's son with a crime. A second pastor here at the Church on the Rise for the second consecutive week has been indicted on crimes.
I've only been there a couple times.
The pastor has been indicted on a number of crimes, and then the son yesterday was indicted on crimes.
That's terrible.
Pastor Jordan Indre was charged yesterday with one felony count of unlawful sexual conduct with a minor. Parishioners had no comment. Can we speak to somebody about your pastor? Jordan's father, Paul Indre, was indicted last week on 2 felony counts of sexual battery and 4 felony counts of gross sexual imposition, and he too didn't want to talk about it.
No comment at this time, thank you.
Authorities say both father and son the same 14-year-old girl, beginning with Paul Indre's attacks in 2005 and continuing until 2013. Authorities say his son Jordan the same girl from June of 2010 until June of 2011. And the church issued a statement interpreted by some as an attempt to try to blame the alleged victim, but the statement goes on to claim that both father and son pastors will be exonerated when they get their day in court. In Avon, Blake Chenault, 19 Action News.
What we're about to read is from October 17th, 2016 by Cleveland19.com. Westlake pastor accused of 14-year-old girl pleads guilty to endangering children. Pastor Paul Indre, who was the founding pastor at Church on the Rise, was arrested in June of 2014 and charged with 2 counts of battery and 4 counts of gross imposition. He is still listed as working at the church on their website and recently gave a sermon on October 8th. And by the way, he is still working at the church, obviously, as you can see from the phone call. Authorities accused Indre of a 14-year-old girl, beginning in 2005 and continuing in 2009, 2010, and 2013. Indre initially denied the charges and said he planned to fight them in court. And his son, an assistant pastor, was also accused of the same 14-year-old girl. However, the charges against him have been dismissed. Now, this 14-year-old girl was Pastor Paul's adopted daughter, and they victim blamed her. And they said that basically she was rowdy and wild and out of control, and how many of us victims can relate to being labeled as that, as if that makes it okay as to what happened to us. I remember, obviously, I've told this story a million times at this point, but one of the biggest things that my parents used to victim blame me is how I dressed as a child, as if that makes what my stepdad did to me and proposed to me any better. The way I acted, my online activity, all of that was used against me instead of a sign that something was majorly wrong. And unfortunately, that is what this 14-year-old girl also experienced. Not only is all of this so disturbing and terrifying, what really makes me extra angry is how specifically Christians, okay, because atheists or anything else that this doesn't apply, but specifically Christians who talk about facing their sins, facing it straight in the face, accepting that what they did was wrong and asking for forgiveness and blah, blah, blah. It's always their number one priority to get their past off of them. They want to be exonerated. They want this gone. If you remember the last church that we looked at in my last video, that pastor was all about talking about how he got his charges expunged and his son-in-laws and another lady in the church, and even telling Nikaylee about how long he thinks it is until Nikaylee's husband can get his records expunged so that nobody can hold that against you. They do not care about these victims. They only care about protecting themselves while getting behind a pulpit and acting like they're a pinnacle of holiness that everyone else should look up to and follow. That they're humble before God. No, you're not, because you want your past erased instead of facing it. Instead of encouraging support for that victim, a victim you created.
No, I appreciate that. It means a lot. We just need to make sure that, like, I don't know, like where he is a registered sex offender, like he can't be around things that are like just solely involved around kids. So that's like our only issue.
Well, we do have an active children ministry and a teen and young adult ministry that happens Sundays, and some are during the week.
Okay. But as long as he's not like
be around people, like, yeah.
But I think as long as he's not in the room with them, I think it should be fine, right?
That is a pastoral question, yes.
Okay.
The pastor that preaches most Sundays is the son of the senior pastor.
Okay.
And their names are Paul Endre, the senior pastor, and his son Jordan Endre is now our weekly pastor.
Okay.
And he's on vacation.
Oh, okay. So I need to call back to talk to one of them?
Yeah, I would call back maybe 2 weeks on a Tuesday, and he will be here.
Okay.
Otherwise, I can write a message for his father, who is still pastor, pastoring. He's doctor now. But if you want to talk to somebody before that in 2 weeks.
Okay, so the dad is who?
The senior pastor is Dr. Paul Endre.
Okay.
Endrei.
But he only pastors sometime there?
Well, he'll be pastoring on Father's Day morning because he's the senior pastor. His son's out of town. But normally his son, Jordan Endre, is the normal Sunday pastor.
You might be thinking Nikaylee is making this face just because it's absurd that this guy and his son would even still be a part of that church. And it is absurd. It is. But the reason she's making that face is because this man, Paul, is not allowed legally to be a pastor. He is literally legally not allowed to be a pastor, yet you just heard the receptionist, the secretary, whatever they call their person, you just heard her say that he is the senior pastor. Well, she retracts that real quick because this is the first time that I have seen Nikaylee break character and actually like rip into somebody. And maybe she has before, I don't know, because I haven't watched every single video. Now, obviously, I'm going to be catching up on a lot of them when we're doing this series, obviously. But this is the first time that I've actually seen her like, you know, confront the behavior and call it out.
So I'm curious though, if he was a convicted PDF, how is he a pastor there? Because wasn't the whole thing he wasn't supposed to be a pastor?
Well, he speaks at the pulpit, but his title is doctor.
But you just said he's still the senior pastor.
Well, I call him that. He's the CEO, I guess you'd say. He's the senior person.
And these are the loopholes that they take, because you don't have to be the pastor of a church to preach at a church. You could just be a church member at a church and preach. In fact, when I was in the church, and if you guys don't know this about me, I'll fill you in very briefly. When I was in foster care, I was placed with an independent fundamental Baptist family. Say that 5 times fast. It's hard to even say it once. And I dove headfirst into the religion because I really thought that I would be taken care of by God. You know, when my mother and father forsake me, then the Lord will lift me up. That was like my life verse, because I had no family. So that should tell you how desperate I was. But it was not uncommon in the church to have random church members ask, you know, if they can present a message. You know, obviously, like the things that go into that, like it has to be approved by the pastor or whatever. And a lot of times they would even have like the teen boys or like the middle school boys. Of course, only boys are allowed to preach. Of course, only boys and men. But they would often have them come up to the pulpit and preach, because, you know, if they want to be a pastor one day, this is really good practice. And then she tries to backtrack by saying, oh, no, he's not the senior pastor. He's just Dr. Paul. Look, I don't care. Do you know how many doctorate of divinity or doctors of divinity, whatever it's called, are pastors and preachers, and how many people who do have their doctorate of divinity who are not pastors and preachers and might just preach sometimes? It does not matter how much you want to say, he's not a preacher, he's Dr. Paul, he's just Dr. Paul. You called him your senior pastor and stood on that until you were called out. You've been caught. The loophole doesn't matter. Unfortunately, actually, legally speaking, the loophole probably completely matters, but we can see through it, can't we? So their website is still up, and like I said earlier, he is still on the website, and she's sitting here listing a million different labels for this man. So why don't we just go to the website itself and see what they have him officially listed as under their About Us section. There he is, Paul Andre, Chief Operating Officer. So yeah, I guess you could say that would be like the CEO, but that feels like a very like weird label just to be able to stay in a high-ranking power of position in a church, because you still want to be the pastor of the entire church. You just can't have the label pastor. So instead, you're going to be the CEO of a church. And what I found really interesting as I was going through their About Us and looking at everybody who is on staff at the church is that it's the majority his own family. Now, obviously, I don't know for sure if all of these people are related, but they all have the same last name. Patty Andre, Senior Lead Pastor. Paul Andre, Chief Operating Officer. Jordan Andre, Co-Lead Pastor. Dawn Andre, Children's and Worship Pastor. And then on the bottom, we have David Hill, Outreach Pastor. Lisa Garlington, which is the Office Manager. And Albert Kopronika, Property Manager. I hope that I said his name right. A family running a church is always a recipe for disaster. Churches already cover up enough crime, because if you didn't know this, churches actually have insurance that they could buy to protect themselves against, you know, like injuries, slips and falls, but even crimes like this. Yes, they do. Having the majority of the staff be family means an extra layer of protection and manipulation to the congregation. So is he technically breaking the law? I don't know, but I think he is.
So you all just welcome into church with kids?
No, I wouldn't answer yes to that question.
But you let him preach around kids.
Well, whatever his court case decided, where he wasn't supposed to come to the pulpit, I think it was for 5 years. I don't remember or know the particulars. That is all passed, and he was not convicted. Which is fine, because I'll be happy to keep answering your questions.
I mean, I'm not setting you up. I just think that it's odd that a church would let a pastor.
That your husband has a pastor?
Oh, honey, I don't have a husband. I was just trying to get you to say whether or not you would let a come into your church and be around kids. And obviously you do, because you
who are and who are not.
Well, they know that pastor is, and you know that pastor is.
No, I do not know that.
Okay.
I let the court decide that. A person,
and they decided that he was
guilty. Okay, well, I don't know what you're reading. I don't dispute whatever you're reading. But if you'd like to come in and talk to us, that's great.
I don't talk to
I don't have time.
I'm not arguing. I asked you a question.
All right, and I've answered.
Okay, well, you have a nice, blessed day. Yeah. Ooh.
I honestly don't blame Nikaylee at all for kind of laying into her, because why are you being obtuse and ignorant on purpose? Acting like you don't have access to this information when you go to church there. And we have the same internet. I was able to find those articles and I was able to see more about your pastor than you claim to know. And by the way, I don't believe you. I don't believe you when you say that you don't know if he was convicted, how long, blah, 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 that you're just completely ignorant to this. This was a big deal. I am sure you heard about it a lot. You're just playing stupid because you don't want to admit that it's wrong to let a man like that preach to kids, when you yourself are the kind of people who say we need to protect children. I think it's fair to assume that these people read their Bibles, right? Which means that they definitely should be aware of Bible verses such as Matthew 18:6, especially because it's in the New Testament and that's Christians' favorite book, because I guess the Old Testament is like too violent and boring. I personally think the book of Judges is very entertaining, and how it ends, that lady in the tower that took out that last bad guy, queen, and she doesn't get enough credit. Anyway, but Matthew 18:6 says, "But whoso shall cause one of these little ones who believe in me to fall, it were better for him that a millstone were hung about his neck and that he were drowned in the depth of the sea." Do y'all know what a millstone is? They're heavy. I'll put a picture of one up here, okay? Yeah, the Bible itself literally says if you harm children, you deserve to have a weight tied around your neck and thrown into the ocean with no help. Yet those same people who preach Matthew 18:6 are putting a guy like that as their preacher and defending him by creating loopholes so that he's not technically the pastor, he's just the CEO. Are you joking me, you hypocrites? It is so important that we talk about these things, that we expose these churches, not only because people need to know where the active churches are that are protecting these kinds of people, but also to show people, double check, triple check that church that you're thinking of. Look up the pastor's name, the assistant pastor's name, look up the youth pastor's name. Do some digging. Type in the church, past allegations. Make sure that you are doing everything you can to keep yourself and your children safe, and that you're not supporting a church or a pastor who sees nothing wrong with moving past the harm of children and even teaching them to forgive and put blame on themselves, the person who harmed them. But that's all I have for you guys today. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. And like I said at the beginning of this video, if you have been or are a member or whatever of this church or any of the churches Nikaylee has talked about, I would really love to hear your perspective. I would love to hear your experience in these churches. Was there anything like weird in the sermons that, like, now that you know what you know, you look back and you're like, okay, now things are starting to make sense? Because I know I've had that experience. If you guys, again, aren't new here, then not too long ago, I made a video on Kenny Baldwin, who was arrested because he was harming a 15-year-old, sending pictures, asking for pictures from a 15-year-old that he met at a church that he was preaching at. And now I can say, looking back at all the messages that I have heard from him in person and online, I'm like, okay, a lot of that was actually projection, wasn't it? And also, speaking of Kenny Baldwin, my next video is going to be on Pensacola Christian College, because in putting together my notes for today's video, I thought to myself, I should check in and see if any updates have come out with Kenny Baldwin, and not really that I could find. But I did see, as of the end of July, Pensacola Christian College made a statement. And I have a lot to say about Pensacola Christian College, because that college is known to have a history of also covering up students who have been harmed by other students, multiple girls who have been expelled because they were harmed on campus and they were called fornicators. That's gonna be next video. That's gonna be the next video. Okay, I can't get into it right now, but that's gonna be the next video, so be on the lookout for that. But that's really all I have for you guys today. Sorry for yapping here towards the end, but I just really appreciate you guys watching and listening and caring about these topics, because for so long I felt alone in caring so much about so many different things and having so many different opinions and thoughts. And so it's so nice to be able to come to a place to be able to share those thoughts and opinions and hear others' thoughts and opinions. It's just amazing, and I really, really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for watching. That's all I have for you guys, and I will see you guys on the next one.